gating system. The system at this point, of course, is access free. If you're in a wheelchair, you don't have hand mobility, you don't have an ability to do certain things that an able-bodied person does. And in some of my interaction with some of the staff, we asked them, is there going to be any kind of accommodation? So if you can't use your hands and you're in a wheelchair, to open the gates without having to hire $1 million worth of staff per station, if you're staffing a station 3 days in 24/7, 365. And of course, the guy came up and sent me an email and said, well, we ought to use access services. And I pointed out, well, it's barrier free. This is an audience that knows how to use the court system and it's got the laws in place. So how are we going to meet the ADA and barrier-free needs on the subway with your staff doing some of the interesting things that they're doing?
Well, first of all, we're not going to violate ADA, and we're not going to penalize somebody who, for whatever reason, can't tap their card. So that's just bottom line. I reassigned executive lead for the tap card system today.
Can you elaborate on that?
Who got the task?
Matt Raymond. And the reason for Matt Raymond, by the way, is he's not particularly happy with the system. And so I think that we need to be willing to argue and discuss pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages. And as a skeptic of the system, Matt is somebody who's perfectly positioned to try to improve it. Now, we're going to work the system. We're going to make it work. We're going to go back and do some work with the munis. A few of them are upset, but we have some recovery work to do to make sure the system works. Having said that, I think that the system will work in the end. We will figure out how to make the gates work in a fashion which permits everybody to ride. We may in fact have staff at the various stations. I considered asking the board to stop the gating system, and in the end I decided that I would recommend that it proceed for a variety of reasons having to do with fare violation, detection of fare violators. So gates are being installed right now. They're free spinning, and that will continue for a few more months now. So we have some work to do to figure out how to resolve in more specificity the questions you've raised. But I've just said what we're not going to have happen.
Okay. We're going to throw it open to questions. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to start with somebody down here with, I see a hand. Zach, okay.
Yeah, speaking of fare gates, if you were the CEO of Metro for the last few years, would you have started the fare gate process in the first place?
I don't know. I haven't reviewed the board reports that were done at that time. I haven't had discussions with the people who made the decision. I know they made the decision fairly recently, and so frankly I haven't gone back to try to figure out whether it was a good or bad decision or not. I did make a decision as to whether I thought they have utility at the current time. So I guess that implies I was persuaded, having been skeptical at first. The idea that if somebody jumps over the turnstile is going to be someone we can easily detect as a fare violator has some merit to me. The fact that it isn't just left up to whatever energy the guard, the inspector might have to check a given individual or not. So I concluded that on net it would work. I was concerned also that there could be queues at the stations going in or out. As I reflected upon that, I thought about other systems around the world I've ridden, and you generally don't see queues. If you think about it, I ride the system in Washington a fair amount, San Francisco, New York. I've ridden a lot of others around the country and the world, and you just don't see queuing. In this case, what we've done is installed some number of gates at each station. There's typically a fenced area between the two banks of gates. If in fact we find queuing, we'll take down that fence and install more gates. So I think that remediates that issue. That was really my principal concern. I didn't want to have somebody miss a train because they were delayed in a queue trying to go through a turnstile. That was my fundamental problem with it, and I got it resolved in my head that if that does happen, we'll be able to correct it.
Somebody over here? Ken?
Okay.
Your question, laser in, please.
Okay. On the tab card, Okay, I have a senior Easy Pass.
Laser in.
You partially answered Bart's question and part of my question, but how are you going to deal with the Easy Pass since if you're going to eventually have a tap card to open the gates? You know how many agencies have signed up so far, about 7. How are you going to resolve that with the immunities? You did talk about the immunities.
I don't know.
And by the way, I'm glad you talked about it.
I don't know, we'll have 2 levels of discussion with them. One is a joint group, but secondly, I'm gonna ask that we sit down one-on-one with each muni, find out what their objectives are, what are their requirements, what do they value or not, and then we'll figure out what the remedy are. You know, and we have, by the way, we do have some initial reports. It's very initial, so I'm not gonna hang my hat on it, but we have some initial data from stations with turnstiles. Even though they're free spinning at the current time, the revenue has gone up in double-digit amounts.
Even with the free spinning.
Yeah, even with free spinning, just that low level of enforcement has created an additional revenue stream. That's a good thing. You know, I don't know that we know what level of evasion was occurring. I don't know what. I'm not speculating on what happens, but there was limited initial data that revenue's up. If that's the case, that would certainly be an endorsement of the gates.
Next question.
So,
Bradley.
as regards Easy Card, stay tuned. I don't know yet.
Bradley.
So the Easy Pass, if you have an Easy Pass, when the gate's no longer, they're no longer free spinning, what will I do is when I come up to that gate, you know?
Well, if we retain the Easy Pass, one of the things that we're considering is having an attendant at each station. The attendant would be there for a variety of reasons, handling emergencies, handling mechanical failures that might occur, handling special conditions that may occur with certain passengers, or handling non-tap fare media. The assumption has been that we would go to exclusively tap media. That we may or may not do that. We'll see. But the system has to work on a pragmatic level.
Next question, sure. Daniel.
Well, my question is regarding not much of the top card, but regarding public education and safety. And I'm looking at you guys, transit have returned, transit TV have returned to metro buses, okay? Well, what I envision about transit TV is becoming in public education on safety ground. Like they say, you have right now airliners are showing the safety procedures on how to board and board when it crashes. Okay. Well, you can use the same technique on transit TV, showing the way what if this chair is not secure? What if the best way for a rider to actually ride safer on the bus? Or what's the procedure for you to get on the bus when you have a bike?
Well, good question.
Okay.
You know, the good thing.
Can I repeat the question for everybody who couldn't hear it?
Go ahead.
Daniel was concerned about using transit TV for educating people so people can understand what's the safe way to use bikes, to use wheelchair tie-downs, to use other proper ways of using the bus. And that's the issue that he's concerned about. And you know, one of the other issues is even getting the people to use the bus as a flow. You flow in the front, you flow out the back, and it's always interfering with people. When everybody's trying to jam out the front, you lose 2 or 3 traffic lights at every major signal. And the riders don't even understand you're supposed to get out of the way for the wheelchair so the wheelchair can get off. And everybody else is like, well, you're not supposed to be getting out the front door anyways. You can get out the back door, leave the wheelchair alone. So how can we change the culture and educate the public on the proper way to use the transit system? kind of
I
things
think
we
the
do.
question was the proper way to use the transit TV.
Yeah.
Which is,
That's
that's the question.
All right, can I,
But let me answer his question, then try to get to yours.
all right,
Okay?
what's an easy
Um,
step on this?
The